state cites, same day as the New York Times. You think that's a coincidence? Cites smooth election despite Trump's baseless claims. In this Pennsylvania brief, 103 pages, which is a fantastic brief, and they're filing other briefs across the country. They cite Bush versus Gore in 2000, among other things, the Equal Protection Clause of the federal Constitution that applies to states through the 14th Amendment. Let me give you some of the examples that are in the brief and some of the examples that are sworn to under affidavits and so forth by real people, not anonymous, which the press likes to use. All through the Russia collusion thing, they never had evidence. Now we have evidence. Now they say it's not enough evidence. Forget about the media. My concern is these liberal judges and some of these justices. If they're going to have the strength and a steel backbone, spine, to do what the Constitution compels and what the states compel. If they don't, it's going to collapse, and the next election will be even worse. In Pennsylvania, you had the Secretary of State, a left-wing Democrat, who's been adjusting their laws all along in violation of Article 2, undermining the state legislature. They've called for her resignation. Of course, she wears that as a badge of honor. Among other things, they were looking at some of the ballots early in the bluest of the blue parts of the city, of the state, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh areas. And she gave guidelines that suggested that the boards of elections in those areas, those cities and counties that were very, very blue, very, very Democrat, take a look at some of these ballots, a lot of these ballots, and if there were mistakes, contact the voter and cure them, fix them. She failed to do the same in the dark red areas of the state. So if you were voting by absentee ballot or by mail-in ballot in a dark blue area of the state, many people had an opportunity to correct or cure their ballots. If you were voting in a red area of the state, the boards of elections didn't even know that that was going on in the blue areas of the state. That is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, because you can't have a Secretary of State giving what she hoped were Democrats an opportunity, a second bite at the apple, while Republicans are out in the blind. No. That's number one. Number two, thanks to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, you have another equal protection problem. Now, what is that? If you vote in person like most of the Trump supporters did, not all, but most, you either get there in line by 8 p.m. Eastern Time on election evening, or you don't vote. If you're there at 8:05 and you say, hey, look, my brother was kidnapped, I don't care. My mother had a heart attack, I don't care. Doesn't matter. You're not there. It's strictly enforced. Strictly enforced. On the other hand, if you send in a mail-in ballot and there's not a signature and there's not a date on it, and it's going to be counted if it's received at any time up till that Friday at 5 p.m., it's going to count. So the in-person voter is discriminated against, treated differently, unequally by the state than a mail-in voter. That clearly also is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. And moreover, it's a violation of Article 2 of the federal Constitution, since the state legislature never put that in place. In fact, they had security measures in place. All votes, regardless of where they came from, had to be there by 8 p.m. or they weren't going to be counted. So the Democrats changed all that. They violated the Equal Protection Clause, in my opinion, as well. Two simple examples. And as we'll discuss later, we also had a courageous postal worker come out and say, hey, look, I saw and heard the scheme from the Postmaster General's office for Western Pennsylvania, about 156 post offices, that involve backdating ballots. What? The Washington Post wrote a smear piece yesterday trashing this guy, saying he gave false information, that he was going to withdraw what he had said under oath. And he put out a video, which we will play. I sent it to you. Do you have it, Mr. Producer? Cut 10. He put out a video, I might as well do it now, The Washington Post wrote a piece, just a smear piece, saying he recanted. He said, I didn't recant anything. Now, the Postmaster General's office and others have been pressuring him. You can imagine the threats that he's receiving because his name is known. Richard Hopkins. Takes guts to come forward in this country under this environment. But he put out a video. And here's what he said. Cut 10, go.
Richard Hopkins. I am the postal employee who came out and whistle blew on the Erie, PA Postal Service postal office. I am right at this very moment looking at an article written by Washington Post. Says that I fabricated the allegations of ballot tampering. I'm here to say that I did not recant my statements. That did not happen. That is not what happened. And you will find out tomorrow. And I would like that the Washington Post recant their wonderful little article that they decided to throw out there.
Now, this is shocking that a major newspaper, the Washington Post in Washington, D.C., read by all the politicians and bureaucrats and all the fancy lawyers, would flat out lie about this man and smear him. We had a so-called whistleblower who was a Biden apparatchik in the White House, whose name we were not allowed to say, but we said it many times, whose identity was not to be